Hey guys, this is Matt Brunet, also known as Animat, and by the way, yes, I did get a haircut. And I just want to go and start things off by saying that I know that some of you might feel like this video could be a little bit too long, so I'm just going to go ahead and begin with a long story short to say that I have officially quit FilmBook altogether. So that pretty much means that I'm no longer going to be producing any more animation podcasts for them, including no longer making any more podcast highlights every Sunday. Now, this would also mean that I'm no longer going to be making any of the other shows that I've done for them, including Movie News Weekly and Blu-ray reviews. So, if you guys would like to know what's going to happen in the future regarding the podcast, then I highly recommend that you can go ahead and skip to here. However, if you guys are highly interested to know what led up to where I am right now and why I decided to quit and you want to know about the details, then stick around and listen to my little tale. Now, in order to give you guys the long story, I would have to start things off by giving you some context. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have joined a website called FilmBook, which is a film journalism website that would offer movie news, television news, reviews, and all that kind of stuff. It's no different than what you would find in websites like Variety, Deadline, The Hollywood Reporter, The Wrap, and all that kind of stuff. It's a little website that wants to be like those big websites. I decided to join them in the summer of 2015, and I did so because there was a moment where I was fully serious to go and become a real film critic. Now, what I mean by a real film critic is to pretty much go and be the kind that would actually get a lot of press screenings in order to see the movies early, in order to deliver some early movie reviews around the time that the film itself would actually be released. It was a way to prove myself that I can actually be a real professional film critic, and a way to help you guys in order to deliver some early reviews, because if I get advanced screenings, that means I'm able to go and work on my reviews early, and that I can give you guys some early reviews instead of just releasing them the week after the movie would actually be released. So that was my big mission. And I saw that FilmBook, they posted this little article, or not an article, but more like kind of a wanted sign on Craigslist, where they were looking for film critics and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to jump in, and maybe this could be the first steps for me to go and become a real film critic. Because in a way, I feel like right now I'm in the position where I feel like I'm Pinocchio. I think that's the best way to put it. I'm the Pinocchio of film critics. I'm just a little wooden puppet who wants to be a real film critic. So hopefully maybe with them, they can actually help me out on this. Now, they have actually mentioned that they would not pay me. And by the way, that is one big thing that you need to put in context during all this, is that never once did I actually get paid. But they were actually looking for film critics, they were looking for film journalists and all that kind of stuff. So I decided I would go and offer my services, in which they did accept. And from there, I would go and do several things. It took a little while to find my position, for me to figure out what to do for the website, but we figure out some ideas where I could be a film journalist, where every week I would do a series of videos called Movie News Weekly, and then I would also talk about animation, where I would do a podcast literally called the Animation Podcast, and it could also be a place where I can post my reviews. Wait a minute, I just realized something. I answered a Craigslist post, I'm not getting paid, and also I didn't sign any contracts to sign in. Oh my god, I think I might actually be stupid. But anyways, so that has been going on for a while, and every week I have spent many hours dedicated to help FilmBook grow and to go and create the content for them, like the Movie News Weekly and the podcast and all that kind of stuff. I was doing everything for them because I was still hoping that, okay, even though I'm not getting paid, my compensation will be getting the early screenings and I'll get the Blu-rays. So that's pretty much my main goal. So I was happy for the time being that I was doing that for about almost 2 years at that point. And that's not the only thing that I've done. I've also done so many other things. I also did a lot of advertisements for FilmBook, where they asked me to do a lot of banners and ads that they would go and put in in the website. And also, I did a lot of the channel trailers for them, where I would go and create the trailers that they could put up on the specific YouTube channel that they can go and highlight that channel. So I was pretty much doing all of that, and keep in mind, with all that, it was literally every week, almost non-stop. I would get a few breaks where I don't have to do them, but those are extremely rare. But for the most part, week after week, for almost 3 years, I have spent a lot of time for FilmBook. Now, in terms of what I actually got as a reward, like I said, I was pretty much hoping that maybe I can get a lot of movie requests, that I would get a lot of reviews, I would get a lot of blu-rays to do. You know, that can actually help me out, which can help me grow as a film critic, and it can even help out my channel, as well as helping out FilmBook. Now, what actually did happen, however, is that throughout the almost 3 years that I've spent with them, I only got about a handful of stuff. In terms of Blu-rays, I think I got about a dozen reviews that I've done, and the grand majority all come from Disney, oddly enough. And in terms of the early screenings, in terms of the actual movie reviews, do you know how many that I've gotten throughout the almost 3 years? 2. Just 2. One of them is a Saudi Arabian animated film called Bilal, and the other is The Shape of Water. That's pretty much it. All those years on FilmBook, and that's all that I've gotten. Like, just a handful of Blu-rays to review, and just those screenings. For almost 3 years. And that's like my payment overall. Like, no money, no nothing, just these things. And that's all. Yeah, as you could tell, this critic is still a dummy made of wood. So, as time would move on, I feel less and less encouraged with working with FilmBook, and especially with the Movie News Weeklies. Those ones feel a lot less fun to do because it's more film journalism, and honestly, I'm not a film journalist, and it's just starting to become very repetitive, and really they feel more like a chore. And honestly, overall, it's more of a burden to actually keep it up, because not only have they not been gathering views over the years, but also the copyright system on YouTube makes it more of a hassle to just keep it up there in the first place. So it really was more of a burden to maintain it, to really keep it alive, than it is to, you know, to actually go and produce them. So really, I felt like there was no point to really keep it going. It was only FilmBook that demanded them to be alive. Meanwhile, I'm the one that's doing 100% of the work. So from there, I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go and write an email to FilmBook saying that I am officially ending Movie News Weekly. I'm no longer gonna be making those, but I can still stick around and make some podcasts, and I can go and ask for reviews and stuff like that. I'll continue asking for requests, and I'll continue asking for like Blu-rays and movies to review, because keep in mind, with the reviews and stuff like that, I would always ask them for every month to see which movies that they can get me to review and which Blu-rays they could get me to review. So I still do my job to ask them to actually make that happen, but they're the ones that barely can. So the thing is, from there, I would go and ask them, alright, I'm ending off Movie News Weekly. There's nothing else that you could say. Honestly, I've become more busy with my life, so that's pretty much over. And then they actually sent me an email telling me that they were perfectly fine with me ending Movie News Weekly. They understood about my predicament, about my situation, so they decided to go and end that off. And then they continued, and they got their own list of stuff that they are also ending off that I did not know. The first thing that they've asked me is that I would officially end off any more of the podcast highlights on my own YouTube channel, saying that they are satisfied with the viewership that they got on their end, so there's no need to actually have some on my channel in order to promote the podcast and the website as well. So they officially said to end that off and that I can no longer make any more of it, which is a little bit problematic for me because the podcast highlights do help out with my channel as well. It's not only helping them out, but it was also helping me out, both in terms of growing my channel, and it was also helping out financially. But then there was also another thing, and that was where I drew the line, where they pretty much told me that they are stripping away any effort to go and try to request to get me some advanced screenings or some Blu-rays for me to review. So basically at that point, now they're just asking me that for every week I should go and make a podcast for them while I literally get nothing in return. No money, no advanced screenings, no Blu-rays, no nothing. They'll just treat me like a podcaster, and one thing I am allowed to do is that I would post my reviews onto their website. And that's the only way that they could treat me as a film critic, is where I would post my reviews that I can pretty much do on my own onto their website. And literally that's it. Oh, would you look at the time? Well, I better go now. See ya! So, for me, that really did draw the line, because the main purpose for me to be on FilmBook is the hopes that I could be treated as a real film critic, that I would actually be capable of getting advanced screenings and stuff like that. And even without the money, at least I would actually get that experience. But now that they are stripping that away from me, and plus the fact that I would have to do these podcasts every week with no way that I can actually get anything from those podcasts, really, it started to feel like my time on FilmBook has pretty much been wasted, where it feels less like I'm helping them out and more like they're exploiting my time and creativity in order to make content for them, while I get jack all. No money, no compensation of any kind, just no nothing. So really, there was no point of me for staying on FilmBook anymore. So what I did is that I actually wrote them an email officially saying that I quit overall, and that's pretty much it. So I just want to end that little story off by saying that I don't have any bad terms with FilmBook at all. I still highly encourage you guys that you should go and check out the website if you want to know any big movie news that is happening, any entertainment news that is going on, to go and check out FilmBook. They still make a lot of great content, a lot of great articles in there, so you can go and check them out. They're still a really good website, and I have no hard feelings towards them. So that's pretty much all that I'm saying. And so here we are today, where I am officially out of FilmBook after working for them for almost 3 years. Actually, I don't think I can really say that, because working would actually imply that I actually got paid or get some form of compensation. What would be a better term? Oh, right. Okay, how about I spend some time with FilmBook. I am no longer required to do any mandatory duties for them, like making weekly podcasts or weekly content for them. So I am officially free from any of that. However, I'm sure that some of you are rather concerned about the fate of the animation podcast. Is it going to continue? Am I still going to keep the show running? What's going to happen with that? Well, I'm just going to be answering a couple of questions, and I will say, is the animation podcast over? Yes, it is officially done. However, am I ending off? Am I retiring from any podcast duties? I don't think I'm giving up on that just yet. Now, one thing I will say, though, is that the reason why I stayed with FilmBook for so long is because making the animation podcast is so fun. I love it that every week I can give out my thoughts on some of the recent animation news and to share with you guys what I think about it and what's going on within the animation world. I love doing it. They're so fun. And honestly, it's a breath of fresh air that I can pretty much let out my thoughts in some form. So I don't really want to give that up just yet. Or I don't know why I keep saying just yet. I just don't want to give that up. So what I'm going to do is that I will be creating a spiritual successor to the animation podcast. And the way that I will present them will be a little bit different. I'm just going to say that you guys know the Pizza Party podcast, right? The one that is run by Pan Pizza of Rebel Taxi. I'm going to be doing it in a similar format to that, where I will start things off by doing a live podcast show on Twitch, and then afterwards, a few days later, I'll upload it on YouTube, and also I'll put it up on other podcast services, including iTunes and Android. Now, don't worry, Pan, I'm not copying your podcast entirely. I'm just going to be taking some inspirations on the format on how you run the podcast, or more like how you distribute the podcast, more per se. The rest, like the podcast itself, will be more myself. Keep in mind, I'm the animation critic with the orange fedora. I'm not the animation critic in which that would take ideas from Pan Pizza and many other critics in order to make my own animation reviews. Just saying. So, with that said, I am actually pretty excited that I can have a new beginning, that I can have a fresh start. However, I'm just going to say right now that yes, on Sundays there will no longer be any more podcast highlights. And what I'm going to do right now is that I will be taking a break from doing any podcast duties so I can go and set things up for the new one. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be switching my Twitch channel, so it's not just going to be Animat Plays, it's going to be Animat Live, where I will be hosting both the podcast and also the Animat Plays, which will still be running every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So I'm going to be doing both of that, and I'll see what else I can do. I'll find ways on how to distribute it, on how to set up the format of the whole podcast, so this is really going to be a brand new beginning. However, I will say one thing that I am excited the most to do is actually change the godforsaken name of the podcast. If there's one thing I've hated from the animation podcast is the name itself. This is not my idea. Fun fact, originally I thought about calling it something like the Squash and Stretch News, but FilmBook decided, no, we're just gonna call it the Animation Podcast. Just make it as bland as freaking possible. So I'm going to be changing that name for good. So that's basically the whole thing. Even though I am ending off the animation podcast, I will be going to go and create a new one, a spiritual successor, where I will still be talking about some of the latest news that's happening in the animation world, and I'll be doing it both live, and I'll be able to post it on my YouTube channel and also on other podcast services. And maybe, if I do have the courage to get out from my shyness, I can bring in some special guest stars at the same time. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, with all that said and done, I just would like to say thank you guys so much for watching, and also thank you guys so much for the great support over the years, especially with the podcast and some of the works that I've done on Movie News Weekly. It really does mean a lot to me. And also, I just want to end things off. Again, no hard feelings towards FilmBook, and I do wish them the best of luck on their future. So, hopefully, stay tuned for the animation or not the animation podcast, but stay tuned for the new podcast to come. I'll probably make another vlog regarding what's going to be going on with that. So, with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!